who are raising the child. Our story last week about babies M&M is a case in point. This is another one, but what makes this one different is that it is being fought in the shadow of yet another fight, the one between the white man and the Indian. 10-year-old Michael Carter, a full-blooded Navajo, has spent the last 7 years growing up in Spanish Fork, Utah, the adopted son of Dan and Pat Carter. He's not unusual. Studies show that more than a quarter of all American Indian children are either adopted by non-Indians or are being brought up away from the reservation in foster homes or institutions. Michael was 3 when the Carters adopted him. It took their attorney 5 months to notify the tribe. A year and a half later, they heard from the Navajos.
When they called us, told us that an attorney wanted to talk to us, a tribal attorney. And so he brought us in the house, sat us downstairs on the couch, and told us that they were going to try and take Michael back.
Let the world know that if anyone wanted to adopt a Navajo child, or even place a Navajo child off the reservation, someone else's home, there is a definite legal procedure that has to be followed in tribal courts in order to do this.
Peter McDonald is the chairman of the Navajo Indian tribe. One of his roles is to ensure the survival of the Navajos through the enforcement of the Indian Child Welfare Act, which was passed by Congress in 1978 to stem the flow of Indian children from the reservation. Under the act, only a tribal court can approve an Indian child's adoption.
We're building a nation here. Even though a lot of our kids go off to college and they get a job, they get some experience, 3 or 4 years out there, we all want them to come back here to help build the Navajo nation.
Can an Indian learn his or her identity, culture, off the reservation?
No. I don't see how. Culture and tradition is at the home.
For young Michael, the only home he's known has been with Dan and Pat Carter. As their only child, he has been the center of their love and affection. They've raised him in a strict Mormon family while trying to give him a sense of his Indian background and culture. But what the Carters have done is illegal. Michael's adoption was granted by the Utah courts, and for 7 years, the Carters have been fighting in state courts to keep their son. But last December, the Utah Supreme Court upheld the Indian Child Welfare Act. Now, the Navajo Tribal Court must decide whether Michael can stay with the Carters or return to the Indian reservation in New Mexico, where he was born. His mother, Cecilia Saunders, wasn't married in 1977 when she gave birth to the boy she calls Jeremiah. And when she put her son up for adoption, she was thinking about his future, not the future of the Navajo Nation. Why did you give up your son?
At the time, I couldn't support him, or I didn't have a job, and I wasn't thinking straight. I was only about 17 or 18.
Today, Cecilia Saunders is 28, married, the mother of 3 other children, and working at a steady job.
You think what you did back then was a mistake?
Yes. A big mistake.
And now?
I'm trying to undo the mistake that I made.
You don't make people suffer because you made a mistake. You don't say, well, I made a mistake, I'm going to take him back. I'd love to correct all the mistakes I've made in my life. Boy, where would I be now? Yeah, things would be a lot different. You can't change the past.
How do you say, okay, adopt my child, and then, no, you can't adopt my child?
Well, first of all, it's a woman's prerogative to change their mind anytime they want to. Number 2, I'm pretty sure that Cecilia did not understand the legal proceeding and the consequences.
When you signed the adoption papers, what did you think you were signing?
I knew I was signing adoption papers.
To permanently give
Yes.
your child up for adoption
Uh-huh.
to the Carters, so that Jeremiah would be theirs to raise and not yours, to call back when you were ready to have him back.
Yes.
What made you change your mind?
Having my little girls and my little boy. The thought of not raising Jeremiah the way I was supposed to. And I don't know, I felt something in me was missing.
What was it like for you when you came back here after you'd given him up? Did you have people you could talk to about it?
No.
What did you do?
I went up into the hills and cried for the thing that I did to him. I cry too when I'm holding my kids, telling them how much I love them. And I can't do that to Jeremiah. I can't tell him how much I love him. I can't give him a hug or anything. But if I had the chance, I would hug him and tell him I love him.
What about your mother? Nothing? No. You saw her in court?
Yeah.
Did you recognize her when you saw her?
Uh-uh.
How did you know that she was your mother?
I think my dad told me.
Michael has no memory of his Indian family or life on the reservation.
If you went to court and the judge said, Michael, you come up here and sit down and tell us what's important to you, what it is that you want to do, and why, what would you say to the judge?
I'd like to stay here so I wouldn't lose my mom and dad.
They're important to you?
Yeah.
Been good to you?
Yeah.
If you went back, do you think it would be difficult for you to adjust?
Yeah. If I had to go back, I'd miss my mom and dad and miss all my friends.
Psychologist Dr. Samuel Roll was hired by the Navajo tribe to make a psychological assessment of Michael. His testimony in tribal court will play a critical role in determining where Michael grows up.
When you grow up as an Indian in white society, in a white family, you begin to think about Indians negatively in a very limited way, and then you think about yourself like that. And then clinically what we see is increased depression, increased suicide, increased hostility against others, and often increased alcoholism.
After evaluating Michael, Dr. Roll believes that he should not live with the white Mormon family, the Carters. He should be returned to the reservation.
Now when I asked him, Michael, what do you wish more than anything in the whole world? He said, I wish I were white. He can't ever become white. I said, why do you want to become white? And he said, if you become white, let me use his own words. He said, if you become white, people don't make fun of you. If you become white, you won't feel alone at school. And if you can become white, you can just plunge right in with the others. Then I said, you know, you talk so much about being white. There must be good things about being an Indian. And he says, my dad says that you can be proud of your heritage if you're an Indian. So I said, you know, you said your dad says. How do you feel about being Indian? He says, I don't know. Well, I'm ashamed. I said, why are you ashamed? He said to me, do you know what Indians do? I told him, tell me what Indians do. He said, Indians fight, they do bad things, they burn down houses, and they kill kids. When he grows up, he has that picture of an Indian, even though his white family has tried to instill pride.
You said earlier that Indians who've been raised in a white culture and go back to the reservation are called apples. Mm-hmm. Red on the outside and white on the inside. Yeah. Is that what happens to Michael?
If he would go back?
If he stays here.
There's one of the authorities in our church is a Navajo Indian. And he was called an apple. He said that he may be an apple, but if you look deep enough, the seeds are still brown. And I think that is what we're trying to do with Michael. He may be being raised in a white environment, even though he is red on the outside, but I want him to still hold a deep love and respect for his Indian heritage.
Why does he say he wished that he wasn't
Well,
an
the
Indian?
time that he said that he wished he wasn't an Indian, I asked him why. And because I said, you should be proud to be an Indian. And he says, yeah, but if I wasn't an Indian, we wouldn't be having all this trouble.
Paul Buckingham is a social worker hired by the Carters to make his assessment of Michael.
For years he's had to live with the cloud of anxiety over his head that it will be the Navajo tribe that will pull him out of the home. And then you ask him questions about how it feels to be Indian, how it feels to be Navajo, and I think you're going to get some mixed responses.
What's more important for him? To have a good relationship with the parents who've adopted him and have raised him for these years, or to have a good sense of his cultural identity and to live as part of that culture on the reservation?
If he goes back to the reservation, he'll be filled with a resentment towards the tribe. He'll be filled with a resentment of what they're about and what they're trying to do and what his heritage is. I think he'll suffer greatly.
No matter how much Michael suffers, he still has to live by the law. And it's now up to a tribal judge to decide who gets Michael.
How are you different today?
I probably know my responsibilities more than I did then. For then, I didn't really care about anything. Sometimes I never care what happened to me, but now I do.
Any person who puts their child up for adoption, eventually, if their life starts going right, they'll say, I shouldn't have given my child up. That was a mistake. If every mother had the chance to take her children back, they'd probably do it. But you can't do that. It's for the child's sake that you don't do it.
Do you have the right, because you made a mistake, to then go back and disrupt the lives of the people who have taken in that child and given him their love and care, and disrupt the life of that child?
Maybe I don't have the right, but he's my son. I carried him the 9 months. And I have a right to want him back.
At the time, all he had time for was study, no time to be a kid. He was in college because his father said that he was much smarter than all his classmates, smarter even than his teachers. The road to a higher education has not been easy for this boy. The problem was very close to home. His name is Adragon DeMello, nicknamed AD. And when you see him on campus, you think somebody's little brother has come to visit and lost his way. But now this fellow is a full-fledged sophomore at Cabrillo College, a 2-year community college in Santa Cruz, California. He takes a much heavier workload than most college students, 21 hours a week in physics, political science, calculus, astronomy, and meteorology.
Southeast, same direction. That means there must be a wind current coming here. Yeah, coming from up here.
What do you think it is that makes you special? What's in that head?
Well, I like doing the things they have in college, like doing calculus formulas and finding out how the weather works. Find out what the real raindrop looks like.
The real what?
The real raindrop. Instead of being a nice circle, instead it's a big bulgy blob.
Were you curious about how the weather worked?
Yes, I was. Like, I remember one time someone telling me the reason that lightning is caused because clouds bump into each other. But now I know, when I came to meteorology class, that's actually caused by discharge of minus charge and plus charge.
Adragon's life is orchestrated by his father, Augustin DeMello, who has taken on his son's life as a full-time career. His main income, he says, is a settlement from an auto accident. They live quite modestly, but the father has plans, big plans.
I think that he can probably earn doctors from 14 and in several areas. physics, astrophysics, and science education. And probably by the time he's 16 or so, start teaching.
So he's going to have at least a couple of doctorates, PhDs, by the time he's 16.
Hopefully.
Mm-hmm. The moon's going to go right across. It's going to be a thin crescent moon.
Richard Nalthenius teaches A.D. astronomy.
He's just always reeling off facts. Things, little obscure facts that he's picked up and just remembered. He remembers everything, which tells me that he's very concentrated. He's got a very good focus in his mind. He's not scattered. His mind moves a lot. It moves from this subject to that subject and that idea to this idea.
Which one's Copernicus?
But at that moment that he's on that idea, his mind is completely there. And that's why he absorbs it. That's why it stays.
Mr. de Mello has always claimed A.D. was no ordinary child. Perhaps, he once wrote, this child might follow in the steps of Da Vinci or Einstein. To him, the signs of genius appeared very early.
At 7 weeks, he said hello.
Come on.
I said hello every day when I came home, and one day he said hello right back.
What do the psychologists say about that sort of response? Was it unusual?
Yes, it is. According to the books on physiology, the development isn't there to say that. So I guess there must be something wrong with that theory.
When Adragon was 3, Mr. de Mello also recorded what he calls the boy's first scientific observation.
If electric chemicals go in the boy...
His father then continued his education by teaching him bigger words. No Pat the Bunny books for Adragon.
I gave him an interesting variety to read. Biographies, for example, of Einstein, of Tesla, and other scientists. I thought that would stimulate his interest.
This is at age?
3.5.
Mm-hmm. Every big word, every thought of Adragon was duly noted by his father from the boy's birth. So far, 10,000 pages of documentation.
Poetry, his plays, tapes. Here we have his letters relating to him, his education, publicity.
Mm-hmm. Publicity important to you, do you think?
Well, as far as possibly interesting people in providing scholarships.
Mm-hmm.
I am learning mathematics and science so that I could be a great scientist like Albert Einstein.
By age 6, de Mello was presenting Adragon to groups of people to show off the child's brilliance. He made home videos of the boy, Daddy asking, A.D. answering.
What created the stars?
Galaxies.
What created the galaxies?
Universe.
What is an astronomical unit?
The distance between the sun and Earth.
From the age of 3 on, he frequently told me that he wanted to go to school. He saw children in the playgrounds as we drove by, and he wanted to get to school as fast as he could.
When A.D. was at nursery school, the father says the curriculum was inadequate. It was made up for at home.
I was reading to him. I had him watching educational programs on television. He took a great interest in them. And, of course, music. He always had music. And he had a great affinity for all the classical composers.
Which you had introduced him to at a very, very early age.
From the time he was born. Mm-hmm. From the day he was born.
For Adragon, the work is unrelenting. His father's push to excel never ceases. He sees virtually no one his own age. One person who takes some of the pressure off is Betty Morris, a teaching assistant at Cabrillo, a kind of surrogate granny and best friend.
What time is it? We can't be late for our class.
A.D.'s mother is something of a mystery. Mr. de Mello says she left them. Others say she cares deeply about the boy. We tried to find her, but she indicated she did not want to speak to us. Do you think you're special? You're a special kind of guy?
Well, everybody I know says it, and I guess I am.
But do you feel special? You feel different?
I do feel different. Because I always walk around campus and there's no children my age that walk around too.
Do you miss not having kids your own age, man?
Sometimes yes and sometimes no.
Tell me about the sometimes yes.
Well, I feel, kind of strange being around adults all the time and not being around children my own age. So I guess that's kind of how I feel.
Do other kids ever come around?
Mm-mm. Not usually.
Do you ever go to anybody else's house to play?
Not in a long time.
Can you handle all the work here?
Yeah, most of it. When I have a whole bunch of tests in a week, it kind of gets to me because I have to study so much.
On the schoolwork part of it, does your dad push you? Does he say, come on, A.D., you gotta do better, you gotta study harder?
Yeah, sometimes.
What do you say when he says that?
I just have to. And if my father doesn't push me that hard, usually my grade's not as high as it was when he did push me hard. He makes me do a calculus problem 5 times over. And then I know it by heart. So...
You mean even if you get it right, you gotta do it again?
Yeah, and do it again so it refreshes your memory instead. Well, I'll do it again so it refreshes your memory again, and then do it again. And then he probably would stop.
Does your dad tell you you're the smartest kid here at Cabrillo?
Sometimes.
Mr. DeMillo had put A.D. into, then pulled him out of, 7 different public and private schools before his enrollment at age 8 in Cabrillo. There was the Popper Kaiser School for Gifted Children. He felt that it, like the other schools, was inadequate. The school's director is Louis Kaiser.
The knowledge he had, the knowledge that he did have, which had been imparted to him in a rote manner, was not a comprehensional knowledge. It was task-oriented knowledge, and he could not, when it came to comprehension skills, he didn't really know what he was doing. He was just carrying out tasks. And education cannot be simply opening up the top of his head and dumping in a lot of data and then parading him around, limelighting him, making him feel different.
The cube root of 4 million.
His father taught him a simple trick, which is a series of numbers to memorize, by which you can determine the cube roots of numbers 1 through 10,000 or something. And people, of course, don't know the trick, so they think he's doing outstanding mentally gifted math or something. You know?
Cube root of 4,913,000 x cubed equals 170x.
You think his father's pushing him too hard?
Yes, I do. I think I have a lot of hope for him because I know if I were his age and if I'd been going through what he's going through, I think I'd be a lot less open and bubbly and just out there than he is. I think he's got a lot of strength that a lot of us wish we had.
I think that the end result will justify my particular action.
The end result being?
His future, how he will benefit our civilization.
So if you added these up, you'd get something bigger than 4 of these.
Right.
So let's write that over here.
His father, always looking for better teachers for his son, brought him at age 6 to Max Weiss, a professor of math at the University of California at Santa Barbara.
These 2 up. You get something bigger than what?
Well, you're going to get 2 4.
Professor Weiss had not seen A.D. for 3 years. We asked him to come up from Santa Barbara to renew the friendship and evaluate the boy's progress.
He could get a lot more out of it. He grew a bit more mature. But on the other hand, I can tell from talking with him, working with him just for that short time, that he really does understand quite a bit of the calculus, and especially the concepts. And I think that is reasonably remarkable for a 10-year-old.
Where do you think he belongs? In terms of his education?
In terms of his education? Well, frankly, I think he could use a rest.
Augustin DeMello is planning no rest for A.D. He's trying to get him into a 4-year course at the University of California beginning next fall.
Congratulations, says the computer.
A.D. is already doing 3 hours a week there in an astronomy course.
There is too much pressure. There is too much of perhaps the wrong kind of stimulus from his father. But I'm saying A.D. will survive this.
That's maybe his genuine gift.
That's right. That's exactly the right way to put it, that it's a gift for him to be able to survive this. And his father cannot program him, no one can, to get a Nobel Prize or to get a PhD by age 16. These are things which will either happen or they won't.
It could be that Augustin DeMillo, who claims several degrees and doctorates, is compensating for his own academic lapses. He does have a BA from UCLA and a degree from a community college. But the doctorates, which he says are in advanced physics, turn out to be from diploma mills. He denies that, says they are perfectly valid. But he also claims to be 47. He's actually 57. But one part of his life that is very much for real is his son, A.D.
You know, as fascinating and interesting a young man as Edric is, I think people are equally fascinated with you and the way you have, in effect, made a career out of this child. Why?
I suppose natural instinct is the best explanation. I feel impelled to do it. I think that it's my obligation, it's a natural responsibility, and I feel I'm achieving something. I think this is probably my greatest achievement.
I had hamsters, and I remember sometimes seeing, like, there'd be 2 hamsters, and there'd be another little hamster, and one time I saw one tugging it this way and another one tugging it this way. It's like one person wants to do this and another person wants to do that, and you just stretched. And you don't know what to do.
You feel like that little hamster sometimes.
Sometimes.
Several months ago, Ed bound camp to learn how to live in the wilderness. For 4 days and nights, the women from New York's Westchester County lived in tents in the Maine woods, going through a series of challenges and obstacles more readily associated with race.
So this is as good a time as any to repeat our story on how to succeed in business Japanese style. It's a tour of Japan's most famous business management school called Kanrisha Yosei Gakko, a school where mid-level executives from companies of all sizes, including large ones like Nissan and Honda, are sent to become samurai of salesmanship. The companies pay the $2,000 tuition fee and take the report cards very seriously. Pass the course and you've got a future. Fail and you've probably seen your last promotion. After all, in Japan, business is a martial art. These are corporate commandos, mid-level managers in their 30s and 40s and even 50s. They come to the foot of Mount Fuji to rededicate themselves to their companies and through their companies' profits to Japan. They don't come here voluntarily. They've been ordered here by their bosses for 13 days of self-improvement. Instructor Fujimori.
Physically, but it's very tough to break his own, conception out.
To break his conception of himself. Do you know they call this Hell Camp?
Oh, that's only a name. Actually, this is paradise.
If this is paradise, the angels better bring some earplugs. The first thing you notice at Hell Camp is that everybody shouts. From the diaphragm, the instructors say, like admirals. Only these admirals are about to set sail against U.S. companies like GE and IBM. Englishman Anthony Willoughby runs a leather goods business in Tokyo and is the only Westerner ever to sign up for the course.
This school is actually designed on exactly the same plan as the kamikaze schools before the war, or during the war. I promise you, it is the Naval Academy is what this is. These are the lines that it is run on.
You mean these are soldiers training for combat?
Absolutely.
Hey, Mike, hold you with that.
Day one, all 250 members of the class are called to muster. There are basically two kinds of recruits: people who are due for promotion to be senior executives but aren't quite ready, and weak executives who've been warned to shape up if they expect to advance in their careers. But before you can shape up, the instructors say, you must sit up. A long stick used in Zen Buddhist rituals prepares the sloppy plebes to learn self-discipline.
Once you've got in there and you've been through the initiation ceremony and they've played the music and you're feeling a part of it, you then are told that which group you're in, about 8 or 15 people, depending on the time. You're then marched outside and you're put up in line like that, and then you have to look at the person in front of you and scream, "Heiserus! Heiserus! Heiserus!" And that means good morning.
After a few ear-splitting good mornings, each recruit is ready to pick up his 14 badges of shame. The ribbons force each trainee to wear his inadequacies on his chest. When he conquers a weakness and passes a test, the instructors allow him to take off a ribbon. All ribbons must be gone to graduate. What kind of tests? Memorizing the 10 commandments of aggressive salesmanship. Clear pronunciation. There are telephone tests designed to make you commanding and quick when you sell by phone. And there are debates, sort of. It's okay if your answer is wrong, as long as it's loud and fast. And there are letters to write to your boss, promising to improve your work and show loyalty to the company. Above all, you must be assertive, especially when proclaiming your limitations. Did you like it?
No, I hated it. I have never in my life felt more homesick or wanted to get out of anywhere. I've never wanted to escape more.
Why? It's not physically so tough.
An excruciating boredom that, and also just the whole atmosphere. I really didn't like it. It's a powerful place.
So powerful that few trainees will ever forget the school song.
And I promise you, it's 3 years since I did this course, but that is still absolutely in my brain.
It's called the Sales Crow song for loyal birds of business. Everybody has to learn to sing it from the heart. What you make with the sweat of your brow, they sing, you must sell with the sweat of your brow. What you make with tears, you must sell with tears. Don't be discouraged, Sales Crow. Look bravely down the street. Encourage yourself, Sales Crow, and fight like a warrior. But what's the point of it psychologically?
I think Japanese people, again, have seldom got out themselves and shouted, because you never shout. And let's say there's one saying in Japanese, the first man to raise his voice has lost the argument. And all this is again, keeping people quiet, keeping them down. so that this is the first time they've been told to get out to shout.
And it's not enough just to shout on the campus. Each day, some of the students put on their business uniforms and are bussed into town to sing the Sales Crow song near the entrance to the railroad station. As always, they're graded. This is pass, this is fail.
The instructors say this is all designed to give the students confidence in public speaking. It's less clear what it gives the people passing by. Back on campus, the competition to get rid of the badges keeps the pressure mounting. And already, by today, day 5, with the toughest 8 days still ahead, one person has run away in the middle of the night without a trace, 2 people have been treated for injuries, and only 91 ribbons of shame have been removed, which leaves 3,143 ribbons of shame to go. No wonder at Hell Camp, you even have to learn how to laugh. Morning wake-up call is 4:15. There are sunrise calisthenics with a towel. It's an old samurai ritual designed to toughen the skin. On this day, the recruits will need tougher skin, literally and figuratively. This is the day of the 25-mile endurance hike. They are sent out in squads. They have maps, though the maps are deliberately misleading, and knapsacks with some rice, fish, and water. The squads compete to see who can get back first. On the average, it takes about 7 or 8 hours to complete the course. And it's not unusual to see some recruits returning by stretcher. It's the day before graduation. An instructor coaches a weak student who is about to get his last chance to pass the test on the Sales Crow song. One more time, he faces the judge. And a grateful embrace for the instructor who coached him through.
Graduation is very, I must say, very moving. I find it moving. I felt a fraud there because I hadn't actually passed all the tests, of course. but to actually see the people coming together, those who have passed and those who have still failed. And half of the people had failed, and those who actually did pass certainly had an immense sense of satisfaction, pride in what they'd done, and were ready to snap back into the system which has built this country.
In this class, only 12 out of 250 graduated on the 13th day. Those who failed got 3 more days to keep trying. If you wonder how important it really is to succeed at Hell Camp, this is a man who, at the end of those 3 days, had failed the course completely. His future as a manager is probably finished. While the other graduates head home, he is humiliated. When he returns, he will face his boss and his family in shame.
I think you can see the single-mindedness and strength of this country that I think is inspiring to anybody else in the world who wants to call themselves a capitalist or who wants to call themselves a businessman. Japan leads the world at the moment, and people have got to come and look and see why. And though we in the West might consider this sinister, it's not really sinister. It's getting people excited. It's getting them within the company area that's good for the group, good for Japan.
And good for the people who can say they have been to Hell Camp and survived.
Which car owners just love to brag about reliability and dependability? Toyota Camry owners. So it's not surprising they tell the most amazing stories of the unbelievable feeling of security they have driving their Camrys. Presenting the 1987 Toyota Camry. More power, handsome new styling. An amazing car gets even better. Who could ask for anything more? Toyota.
The lamp is by Tiffany. The settee is by Majorelle. And the gourmet cat food is by Fancy Feast. Fancy Feast. Good taste is easy to recognize.
You know, this is my favorite bar, because everyone here drinks Miller Lite for the same reason I do, because it tastes great. Yeah, my kind of crowd. Yeah.
For big taste, there's only one light beer, Miller Lite.
60 Minutes, a CBS News weekly magazine, will continue.
From across America, which of these 51 beautiful girls will wear the crown of Miss Teen USA? In the tradition of the Miss USA and Miss Universe pageants, it's the hottest event of the summer. Join Michael Young, Stephanie Kramer, and the Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders for a sizzling evening full of surprises. The 5th annual Miss Teen USA pageant, live Tuesday.
This is CBS.
Come on, come on.
Honey, enough.
Most.
Tired of losing?
I knew it.
Next time.
Tired of missing out?
Oh, gee.
Time and time again.
I give up.
It's time you played Hardee's $40 million pocket money game. You could win up to $10,000 just by matching heads and tails. Plus, we guarantee you'll win a delicious food prize every time you play. So play pocket money.
We won.
And get a real taste of winning. Because at Hardee's, we're out to win.